What's up, everybody? And welcome to another edition of High Mythology, the show where we get higher than the talking reindeer, or high enough to talk to reindeers.
Definitely high enough for that. Sure.
We tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore. Tonight, we will be bringing you the conclusion of The Snow Queen from Hans Christian Andersen. Yeah. Good little story. Some talking birds. Mm-hmm. A lot of crowy crows.
Maybe some dragons.
You never know when a dragon's going to pop by and say, hello.
There's no dragon.
That's no dragon. Spoiler alert. Yeah. So without further ado, Kimbo, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Chapter 5.
The
Little Robber Girl.
The Little Robber Girl.
The coach drove on through the thick forest, where it lighted up the way like the torch that dazzled the eyes of some robbers, who could not bear to let it pass them unmolested.
Jesus. Guys, consent.
It's gold, they cried, rushing forward to seize the horses. Then they struck dead the little jockeys and the coachman and the footman, and pulled little Gerda out of the carriage.
Murder!
An old woman robber said, "She is plump and pretty. She looks like she's been fed the kernels of nuts."
Just guessing her diet. She looks like she's been fed nut kernels. Also, she's covered in nut kernels, so.
She had a long beard and eyebrows that hung over her eyes, and she continued to say, "She is as good as a fattened lamb. How nice she will taste." And as she said this, she drew forth a shining knife that glittered horribly. "Oh!" screamed the old woman, as at that same moment, for her own little daughter, who held her back, had bitten her in the ear. And her mother said, "You naughty girl." And now she had not time to kill Gerda.
Yeah.
The little robber girl said, "She will play with me, and she will give me her muff and her pretty dress, and she will sleep with me in my bed." And then she bit her mother again, and all the robbers laughed. She continued to say, "I will have a ride in this coach." And she would have it her way, for she was self-willed and obstinate.
Wow.
Yeah. She and Gerda seated themselves in the coach and drove away over stumps and stones into the depths of the forest. The little robber girl was about the same size as Gerda, but stronger, and she had broader shoulders and darker skin, and her eyes were quite black. She had a mournful look.
Aww.
She clasped little Gerda around the waist and said, "They will kill you as long as you don't piss me off. I suppose you are a princess." Gerda says, "No." And then she told her all of her history and how fond she was of little Kay.
Little Kay.
The robber girl looked earnestly at her, nodded her head slightly, and said, "They won't kill you, even if I do get angry with you, for I will do it myself." And then she whipped Gerda's eyes and put her own hands into the beautiful muff, which was so soft and warm. Or no, she didn't whip. Wow. She wiped Gerda's eyes. Wow. Wow. Sorry.
and then put her hands into the soft, warm muff.
Yep. I gotta get it wet first. The coach stopped in the courtyard of the robber's castle, the walls which were full of cracks from top to bottom. Ravens and crows flew in and out of the holes and the crevices, while the great bulldogs, each with the look of their own could swallow a man, were jumping about, but they were not allowed to bark.
No barking.
In the
allowed.
large, old, smoky hall, a bright fire was burning on the stone floor. There was no chimney, so the smoke went up into the ceiling and found a way out for itself. Soup was boiling in a large cauldron, and the hares and rabbits were roasting on the spit. The little robber girl says, "You shall sleep with me and all my little animals tonight." And after they had something to eat and drink, she took Gerda to a corner of the hall where some straw and carpets were laid down. Above them on the loths and perches were more than 100 pigeons that all seemed to be asleep, although they moved slightly when the two little girls came near them. The little robber girl said, "All of these belong to me." And she seized the nearest to her, held it by the feet, and shook it till it flapped its wings.
Oh, Jesus. Flap, 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 flap,
And then she told Gerda to kiss it.
kiss it.
As if it were flapping its wings in Gerda's, as it was flapping its wings into Gerda's face. And that thing's going to kill me.
Kiss it.
She continues to say, sit there with the wooden pigeons. And she pointed to a number of laths and a cage which had been fixed into the walls near one of the openings. She said, both rascals would rather fly away directly, but if it was not closely locked up. And here is my old sweetheart, Bah.
Bah.
And she dragged out a reindeer by the horn. His real name is Sven.
Bah.
He wore a bright copper ring around his neck and was tethered to the spot. She said, we are obliged to hold him tight too, or else he would run away from us too. I tickle his neck every morning with my sharp knife, which frightens him very much.
You are terrifying, kid.
And the robber girl drew a long knife from a chink in the wall and let it slide gently over the reindeer's neck. The poor animal began to kick, and the little robber girl laughed and pulled down Gerda into the bed with her. Gerda asked her, will you have that knife with you while we were asleep? Looking at it in great fright. The little robber girl said, I always sleep with the knife by me. No one knows what may happen. But now tell me again about your little Kay and why you want to go out into the world.
She's crazy. Don't tell her
Help
the story.
me. Then Gerda repeated her story over again, while the little wood pigeons in the cage over her cooed, and the other pigeons slept. The little robber girl put one arm across Gerda's neck and held the knife in the other, and was soon fast asleep and snoring. But Gerda could not close her eyes at all. She knew not whether she was going to live or die. The robbers sat around the fire singing and drinking, and it was a terrible sight for a little girl to witness. Then the wood pigeon said,
Cuckoo! We have seen little Kay. A white fowl carried his sledge, and he sat in the carriage of the Snow Queen, which drove through the wood while we were laying our nest. She blew upon us, and all of our young ones died, except for the two. Cuckoo.
Gerda said, what are you saying? Where was the Snow Queen going? Do you know anything about it? The pigeon said,
Oh, she was most likely traveling to Lapland, where there is always snow and ice. Coo. Ask the reindeer that is tethered there. Cuckoo.
And the reindeer said,
Oh yeah, buddy. There's always snow and ice up there, and if it is a glorious place, and you can leap and run about freely on the sparkling icy plains up there. The Snow Queen has her summer tent there, but her strong castle is at the North Pole on an island called Spitsbergen.
Gerda sighed, saying, okay, little Kay. The robber girl says, lie still or you shall feel my knife. In the morning, Gerda told her all that the wood pigeons had said, and the little robber girl looked quite serious and nodded her head and said, that's all talk, and that's all talk. Do you know where Lapland is? And she asked the reindeer. The reindeer's eyes sparkled, and he said,
oh, well, who should know better than I? I was born and brought up there, and used to run about on the snow-covered plains over there.
The little robber girl said, now listen, all our men are gone away, only Mother is here, and here she will stay. But at noon she always drinks out of the great bottle, and afterwards she sleeps for a little while, and then I'll do something for you. She jumped out of bed, clasped her mother around the neck, and pulled her by the beard, crying, my own little nanny goat, good morning! And her mother pinched her nose till it was quite red. Yet she did it all for love. When the mother
really weird dynamic.
When the mother had gone to sleep, the little robber maiden went to the reindeer and said, I should very much like to tickle your neck a few times more with my knife, for it makes you look so funny. But never mind. I will untie your cord and set you free, so that you may run away to Lapland. But you must take good care of your legs and carry this little maiden to the castle of the Snow Queen, where her play friend is. You have heard what she has told me, for she has spoke loud enough, duh. And you were definitely fucking eavesdropping, bitch.
Oh, sorry.
The reindeer jumped for joy, and the little robber girl lifted Gerda onto his back and had the forethought to tie her on, even to give her her own little cushion to sit upon. The little robber girl said, "Here are your fur boots. No doubt it will be very cold, but I must keep the muff. It is so pretty. However, you shall not be frozen for the want of it. Here are my mother's large warm mittens. They will reach up to your elbows. Let me put them on. There. Now your hands look just like my mother's. Clammy
hands."
Gerda wept for joy. The little robber girl continued to say, "I don't like to see you fret. You ought to look quite happy now. And here, have 2 loaves of ham so that you don't starve." And these were fastened upon the reindeer. But then the little robber maiden opened the door, coaxed in all the great dogs, cut the strings to which the reindeer was fastened with her sharp knife, and said, "Now run, but mind you take care of the little girl." And Gerda stretched out her hand with the great mittens on it towards the little robber girl and said farewell. And away they flew over the stumps and stones through the great forest, over marshes and plains as quickly as he could. The wolves howled and the ravens screamed, while up in the sky quivered red lights like flames of fire.
Wow.
The reindeer said,
"Oh, those over there, up there, around there, those are my old friends, the Northern Lights. See how they flash?"
And he ran on day and night, still faster and faster. But the loaves of hams were all eaten by the time they reached Lapland.
Ham.
Chapter 6. The Lapland Woman and the Finland Woman.
Oh.
They stopped at a little hut, and it was mean looking. The roof
Fucking mean looking hut.
The roof sloped nearly down to the ground, and the door was so low that the family had to creep in on their hands and knees when they went in and out. There was no one at home but an old Lapland woman who was dressing fish by the light of a train oil lamp. It's very descriptive right there. The reindeer told her all about Gerda's story after having told his own first, which seemed to him the most important. But Gerda was so pinched with the cold that she could not speak. The old Lapland woman said,
Oh, you poor thing. You have a long way to go yet. You must travel more than 100 miles further to Finland. The Snow Queen lives there now, and she burns bingle lights every evening. I will write a few words on a dried stockfish, for I have no paper. You give it to the Finland woman who lives there. She can give you more information than I can.
So when Gerda was warmed and had taken something to eat and drink, the woman wrote a few words on a dried fish and told Gerda to take great care of it. Then she helped her onto the back of her reindeer.
This fish says, "Fuck your mother."
How's she know she can't read Lapland? And he sprang high into the air and set off at full speed. Flash and flash went the beautiful blue northern lights and the whole night long. And at length they reached the Finland and knocked on the chimney of the Finland woman's hut, for it had no door above the ground. They crept in, but it was so terribly hot inside that the woman wore scarcely any clothes. Scandalous.
She's just naked.
She was small and very dirty looking, and she loosened little Gerda's dress and took off the fur boots and mittens, or Gerda would have been unable to bear the heat. And then she placed a piece of ice on the reindeer's head and read what was written on the dried fish.
Fuck my mother?
After she had read it 3 times, she knew it by heart, and she popped the little fish into the soup saucepan as she knew it was going to be good to eat, and she never wasted anything.
I like that. That's like the disposable message.
For real.
Send it on a fish skin, then she'll just throw it in the soup.
Ah, that sounds good. Fuck it.
Yeah.
The reindeer told his own story first, and then little Gerda's. And then the Finlander twinkled with her clever eyes, but said nothing.
Twinkle, twinkle.
The reindeer said,
Oh, hey there. You're so clever over there. I know you can tie all the winds of the world with a piece of twine, you know. If a sailor unties one knot, he has a fair wind, but when he unties the second, oh, gee golly, it blows hard over there. But if the third and fourth are loosened, oh, there then comes a storm, I tell ya, which will root up the whole forest. Can you give this little maiden something which will make her as strong as 12 men or something like that, please?
The crazy Finland woman said, "The power of 12 men? That would be very little use." She went to a shelf and took down the unrolled large skin on which were inscribed wonderful characters, and she read till sweat ran down from her forehead. But the reindeer begged so hard for little Gerda, and Gerda looked at the Finland woman with such tender, tearful eyes that her own eyes began to twinkle again. She drew the reindeer into the corner and whispered to him while she laid a fresh piece of ice on his head, and she said, "Little Kay is really with the Snow Queen, but if he finds anything there that is so much to his taste and his liking, that is believes it is the finest place in the world. And this is because he has a piece of broken glass in his heart and a little splinter in his eye. There must be taken out, or he will be human, or he'll never be human again, and the Snow Queen will retain her power over him." The reindeer says.
Oh, yeah, but that didn't answer my question there, Can you give little Gerda there something to help her conquer the power?
The crazy woman says, "I can give her no greater power than she already has. Don't you see how strong that is? How men and animals are obliged to serve her, and how well she has gotten through the world barefoot as she is? She cannot receive any power from me greater than she has now,
The power of shoes.
Which consists of her own purity and innocence of heart. If she cannot help herself, obtain the access to the Snow Queen, and remove the snow glass fragments from little Kay, we can do nothing to help her. 2 miles from here as the Snow Queen's gardens begin. You can carry the little girl so far and set her down by the large bush which stands in the snow. It's covered with red berries. Don't eat them, no, they're poisonous.
Don't eat the berries.
Do not stay long gossiping, but come back here as quickly as you can." And then the Finland woman lifted Gerda upon the reindeer and ran away with her as quickly as he could. "Fuck this bitch," they said.
Yeah. Peace. The crazy naked ladies weird me out.
For real. Little Gerda cried, "Oh, I forgot my boots and mittens." And as soon as she felt the cutting cold, but the reindeer dared not stop, so he ran on until he reached the bush with the red berries. And here he sat down Gerda, and he kissed her, and the great bright tears trickled over the animal's cheeks, and then he left her and ran back as fast as he could.
Peace.
Peace, bitch.
Sorry.
There stood poor Gerda, without shoes, without gloves, in the mists of cold, dreary, ice-bound Finland. She ran forward as quickly as she could, when a whole regiment of snowflakes came around her. They did not, however, fall from the sky, which was quite clear and glittering with the northern lights. The snowflakes ran along the ground, and nearer they came to her, the larger they appeared. Gerda remembered how large and beautiful they looked through the burning glass. But these were really larger and much more terrible, for they were alive and were the guards of the Snow Queen, and had the strangest shapes. Some were like great porcupines, others were twisted serpents with their heads stretching out, and a few of them were like fat bears with their heads bristled. But they were all dazzling white, and were all living snowflakes. What?
Hey, boo-boo, let's go get some picnic baskets.
Little Gerda repeated the Lord's Prayer, and cold was so great that she could see her own breath come out of her mouth like steam. As she uttered the words, the steam appeared to increase as she continued her prayer, until it took the shape of little angels, who grew larger the moment they touched the earth. They all wore helmets on their heads and carried spears and shields. Their number continued to increase more and more, and by the time Gerda had finished her prayers, a whole legion stood around her. They thrusted their spears into the terrible snowflakes so that they shivered into 100 pieces. They shivered into 100 pieces. And little Gerda could go forward with courage and safety. The angels stroked her hands and her feet so that she felt less cold, and she hastened to the Snow Queen's castle. But now we must see what Kay's been doing. Hey, In truth, he never thought of little Gerda, and at least of all of that, she could be standing at the front of the palace.
He's just been still trying to mac on the Snow Queen. Yeah, hey, baby, hey. You ever hear this one?
Yeah.
8 times 8.
64.
Yeah. 6 times 9.
Hey.
69. I'm not good at math.
I was like, that doesn't add. Chapter 7. Of the Palace of the Snow Queen and what happened there at last.
At last!
The walls of the palace were formed of drifted snow, and the windows and doors of cutting winds, and there was no more than 100 rooms in it, all as if they had been formed of snow blown together. The largest of them extended for several miles, and they were all lighted up by the vivid lights of the aurora, and were so large and empty, so icy cold and glittering. There was no amusements here, not even a little bear's ball. When the storm might have been the music, and the bears could have danced on their hind legs and shown them good manners.
Where are my dancing bears? Hey, Boo Boo, let's go dance on these balls over here for some picnic baskets.
Hey. There were no pleasant games of Snapdragon or touch or even gossip over the tea table for the young lady foxes. Empty, vast, and cold were the halls of the Snow Queen.
No gossiping foxes here.
What the fuck? The flickering flames of the northern lights could be plainly seen, whether they rose high or low in the heavens. From every part of the castle, in the midst of the empty, endless halls of the snow, was a frozen lake.
Frozen lake.
Broken on its surface into 1,000 forms. Each piece resembled the other, because each was in itself perfect as a work of art. Oh. And in the center of this lake sat the Snow Queen when she was at home. She called the lake the Mirror of Reason, and she said it was the best, and indeed the only one in the world. Little Kay was quite blue and cold, indeed almost black, but he did not feel it, for the Snow Queen had kissed away all the icy shiverings.
Cold never bothered me anyway.
And his heart was already a lump of ice. So he dragged some sharp, flat pieces of ice to and fro and placed them together in all kinds of positions, as if he wished to make something out of them. This is just as we try to form various figures with little tablets of wood, which we call the Chinese puzzle.
Chinese puzzle. Very puzzling.
Asian. We got this. Kay's figures were very artistic, and it was the icy game of reason at which he played. And in his eyes, the figures were very remarkable and of the highest importance. This opinion was owing to the splinter of the glass stuck in his eye. He composed many complete figures forming different words, but there was one word that he could never manage to form, although he wished it very much, and the word was eternity.
Eternity. An eternity? Eternity.
Wow.
Spelling isn't my strong suit either.
I see that. The Snow Queen says to him,
when you can figure this out, you'll be like your own master, and I'll give you the whole world and a new pair of skates.
But he could not accomplish it.
Failure.
The Snow Queen says,
now I must hasten away to warmer countries. My skin gets all dry and rashy if I stay here for too long, so I'm going down to Florida. And go look into the black craters of the tops of the burning mountains, Etna and Vesuvius, as they are called. I shall make them look white, which will be good for them, and for the lemons and the grapes. The grapes and the lemons really need it, and I can't have my vodka tonics without a slice of lemons, so...
And away the Snow Queen flew.
Bye.
Leaving little Kay quite alone in the halls in which so many miles in length. He sat and looked at his pieces of ice and were thinking so deeply and sat so still that anyone might have supposed that he was frozen.
Frozen.
Just at that moment, it happened that little Gerda came through the great door of the castle. Cutting winds were raging around her, and she offered up a prayer, and the winds sank down as if they were going to sleep. On she went till she came to a large empty hall and caught sight of Kay.
Kay!
She knew him directly, and she flew to him and threw her arms around his neck and held him fast while she exclaimed, Okay, dear little Kay, I found you at last. But he sat quite still, stiff and cold. And little Gerda wept hot tears, which fell from her breast. Fell on his breast, excuse me.
Hot tears fell from her breast. That's not where tears come from.
And penetrated into his heart.
Oh, hey there.
And thawed the lump of ice and washed away the little piece of glass which was stuck there.
Oh.
And then he looked at her and she sang, Roses bloom and fade away, but we the Christ shall see always.
That's my jam.
Then Kay burst into tears, and he wept so that the splinter of glass swarmed out of his eye. Then he recognized Gerda and said joyfully,
Gerda, dear little Gerda, where have you been all this time, and where have I been?
And he looked around him and he said,
How cold it is, and how large and empty it all looks.
And he clung to Gerda, and she laughed and wept for joy.
Oh, Gerda.
It was so pleasing to see them that even the pieces of ice danced. And when they were tired and went to lie down, they formed themselves into the letters of the word in which the Snow Queen had said he must find out before he could be his own master of the whole world and have a new pair of skates.
Have a new pair. You can be master. You can rule the entire world. And also, I will get you a new pair of skates. Ooh, skates!
That's exactly what I want.
I've always wanted skates.
Gerda kissed his cheeks.
Global domination.
And they became blooming. And she kissed his eyes, and they shone like her own. She kissed his hands and his feet, and they became quite healthy and cheerful. And the Snow Queen might come home now when she pleased, for there stood his certainty of freedom, and the word that she wanted written in shining letters of ice. Then they took each other by the hand and went forth from the great palace of ice. They spoke of grandmother and the roses on the roof, and as they went on the winds were at rest, and the sun burst forth, and when they arrived at the bush with the red berries, there stood the reindeer waiting for them, and he had brought another young reindeer with him, whose udders were full, and the children drank her warm milk and kissed her on the mouth.
Let us suckle from your warm udders and kiss you on the mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Our Dutch fairy tales are very weird. We do a lot of kissing and a lot of sucking on random udders.
I guess so. Bestiality is a thing. They carried Kay and Gerda first to the Finland woman, where they warmed themselves thoroughly in the hot room and had directions about their journey home.
Let us go into your sauna.
Ooh, yoo-hoo!
Oh, yeah. It's so balmy in here. Would you like some reindeer milk?
What about the go to lutefish? Next, they went to the Lapland woman, who had made some new clothes for them and put their sleighs in order. Both the reindeers ran by their side and followed them as far as the boundaries of the country, where the first green leaves were budding. And here they took leave of the two reindeers and the Lapland woman and said their farewells.
We're not allowed outside of Lapland.
We don't have our fucking passports.
I'm actually on probation.
See? House arrest. You see this anklet?
I can't leave Lapland there.
The birds began to twitter, and the forest, too, was full of green young leaves.
The birds are tweeting all about this.
And out of it came a beautiful horse, which Gerda remembered, for it was one which had drawn the golden coach. The young robber girl was riding upon it, with a shining red cape on her head and pistols in her belt.
And she murdered them both, the end.
And it was the little robber maiden who had got tired of staying at home. She was going first to the north, and if that did not suit her, she meant to try some other part of the world. She knew Gerda directly, and Gerda remembered her and was joyful meeting. The little robber girl said, "You are a fine fellow to be gadding about this way. I should like to know whether you deserve that anyone should go to the end of the world to find you." But Gerda patted her cheeks and asked after the prince and princess. The little robber girl said, "They've gone to foreign countries." And Gerda asked, "And the crows?"
"We're up here, banging in the tree, making eye contact with you."
She replied, "Oh, the crow is dead.
Oh,
His tame sweetheart is now a widow and wears a bit of black around her leg." She's already black, you know. Yeah. She mourns very pitifully, but it's all stuff. But now tell me about how you managed to get him back.
The crow died. I don't think he died. I think he faked his death.
I think you killed him. Then Gerda and Kay told her all about it.
Yeah, because think about it. Even when he left him, it was like the relationship was already getting rocky. And he's like, okay, I'm done. Peace out.
Just married this bitch. The little rubber girl said, snip, snap, snurr. It's all right at last. She took both their hands and promised that if ever she would pass through the town, that she would call and pay them a visit. And then she rode away into the big wide world. But Gerda and Kay went hand in hand towards home. And as they advanced, spring appeared more lovely with its green venture and its beautiful flowers.
I imagine the girl saying that is like, she's saying it in a nice way, but it's also like a backhanded threat. Like she's still just sitting there, like sharpening her knife. Maybe if I'm back in town, I'll come visit you.
Dude, I'm sure she had a pistol on them the whole time.
Yeah.
Very soon they recognized the large town where they lived and the tall steeples of the church in which the sweet bells were ringing a merry peal. As they entered it, they found their way to their grandmother's door. They went upstairs into the little room where they all looked just as it used to, and the old clock was going tick, 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 and the hands pointed to the time of day. But as they passed through the door into the room, they perceived that they were both grown up and became a man and woman.
Wow, I'm a man now.
The roses out on the roof were full in bloom and peeped in out the bay.
Hey,
out the window.
We're just peeping.
And there stood the little chairs on which they had sat when they were children. And Kay and Gerda seated themselves each on their own chair and held each other by the hand, while the cold, empty grandeur of the Snow Queen's palace vanished from their memories like a painful dream. The grandmother sat in the bright sunshine, and she read aloud from the Bible, "Except ye become as little children, and ye shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of God." And Kay and Gerda looked into each other's eyes, and at once understood the words of the old song. Roses bloom and fade away, but we the Christ child always see. Sorry. And they both sat there, grown up, yet children at heart. And it was summer, warm,
I'm
beautiful
confused.
summer.
Did the grandma just say they're going to hell?
Pretty much.
Because they're not children anymore?
Yep.
Sorry, you shouldn't have got old quick, because that means we're going to have to burn you at the stake for witchcraft.
Honestly, she probably thinks that they broke into her house, because her kids must have been dead for years. They came back and they're full fucking adults.
She was already confused in the beginning of the story. She was already sounding senile. So.
I mean, she was talking about bees and...
Oh, look at the white bees, and if you follow the forest bees, you'll find
that's fucking snow. It's not a bee.
Bee snow.
Snow. They're white bees.
But the yellow snow tastes like honey.
Oh my God. I'm sure it does, Grandma.
Okay, Grandma, can you go back to the home again?
Dad. The fuck is happening?
Grandma, stop taking her pills.
Go help her.
Go help her.
And she's got pee everywhere on her.
Yeah, she ate the yellow snow again.
And she's trying to hand feed the fucking wall.
Yeah.
The picture frames.
Yeah, she's calling it a crow. Yeah. Hope you folks enjoyed. That's the end of it, right?
Yeah.
That was the end. Yeah.
It was.
Grown up children.
Want my reference?
Warm, beautiful
Fairy
summer.
tales.
Yeah.
Z.com.
Hans Christian motherfucking Andersen up in this motherfucker.
Yeah.
Mr. Andersen. Hans Christian Andersen. Yeah. Hope you folks enjoyed the conclusion of this story.
Yeah, I don't see how this is a lot like Frozen. I guess Anna is Kay?
Is the boy? I don't know. It's very confusing.
I mean, honestly, she got hit in the head with the fucking ice, right? Yeah. So there goes her eyesight. The troll changed over shit.
Uh-huh. Well.
And then she got hit in the heart.
Yeah. I keep trying to look for similarities, but at a certain point,
really not.
I'm like, you just gotta let it go.
Okay, I guess we're letting it go. Thanks for letting me do this one, you guys. I've been wanting to do it for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been fun. I hope you folks have enjoyed it. Be sure to let us know We love getting feedback from you wonderful people.
Yeah.
So give us a shout out. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll be coming at you next week with some more goodness.
I'm going Pakistani.
Pakistani!
Sorry.
Word.
I already know what I got. I already got them back up you.
If you got it, got to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.